Welcome to another episode of Primility Primer, our morning reminder of the power of balancing pride and humility as we go about our daily lives. This is episode 9. I am your host, Jared Morris. And I want to take this episode to just take a quick step back and talk about how you actually use Primility, how it's actually useful. In episode 2, I talked about what Primility is, and I've shared some examples and some different stories since then. But I want to actually give a few examples of how you use this, because Primility is not meant to be this kind of abstract concept or just clever wordplay from mashing two words together or just the word on the sign over my left shoulder in the Google Hangout windows, right? It's meant to make an impact. It's meant to have a difference on our individual daily lives. That's the goal. The goal is self-awareness for self-determination. And the term self-awareness is important. It's awareness. It's not self-flagellation. And I may take an entire episode and break down that concept. But the idea here is not to beat ourselves up over past decisions because they're already over. And it's not to beat ourselves up over the place we are currently. It's simply to be aware of it, to be aware of the choices, the habits that brought us to where we are right now, assess them, and then figure out the next step that we need to take. And for me, assessing decisions, assessing current places in life or in my job or in a relationship or whatever it may be, along the spectrum of pride and humility has always really helped me to take the next step, because it helps me figure out, okay, here's where I am, understand why I've gotten here. Now, what do I need to do next, right? That's part of why I wear the red wristband and also the original gray wristband too, which was the very first Primility wristband I ever had, because it's simply a reminder to do this, to take a step back and to make this assessment. So a couple examples. Let's take Frank as an example. And I'm totally just making these names up, right? Say Frank is kind of struggling with his weight and he's put on some extra pounds, is struggling to take the weight off, and nothing he tries really seems to be working. But the problem is he's not really trying that much. He kind of feels like he can do what he's always done. And even as he gets older, he will simply, just like when he was younger, he'll be able to shed the pounds pretty easily, but it's not happening. And he's got this goal out here and he's not hitting it, and he's really starting to get frustrated with it. Well, this to me is a classic case of being too far along the pride part of the spectrum of Primility. Because if we think that if we simply do what we've always done, that we'll get some kind of different result, why? Just because we're us and we think that we can just say, hey, I want a different result and it's going to happen? There's a little bit too much pride in play right there. And frankly, part of the reason why maybe Frank is struggling to drop the weight, and maybe there are health issues involved and there's something like that, but that would suggest going to see a doctor. Maybe that's something that you can't figure out on your own and you need extra help to do it. Or maybe you're just making bad decisions. Maybe in individual moments, you're making selfish decisions, Frank is, because he wants that piece of pizza or he wants to drink that beer. Instead of staying humble, right, going further along the humility part of the spectrum, staying humble to the fact that he's got these goals that he wants to achieve, and it'll help his family if he loses weight, and it'll help his future self if he loses weight. He's making the decision for the person in the moment. He's being prideful, too prideful, and thinking about only himself, right? And I can relate with Frank a little bit. I've been struggling with this a little bit myself here over the past year or so, and as I assess myself doing this, I noticed that, okay, I've got to have more humility. I've got to understand that I need to do something different to get a different result, that maybe I need to learn something new because what I know isn't working anymore now that I'm older or whatever it is, right? And so it's about, again, it's not about judging per se, at least not in the sense of beating yourself up for judging, but for Frank, it's about taking a step back, understanding where he is, why he is where he is, and then what does he need to do to take that next step? And I think for Frank, it's about adding a little bit of humility to the mix, because it's probably pride that's gotten him to where he is, excessive pride. Because again, pride and humility by themselves, I don't think are bad. It's when they get excessive on either side that it's bad. And that's when we need the other one to pull us back in toward the middle. It's about being balanced, All right. So take an opposite example, right? Take Joanna, who struggles to give presentations, doesn't want to give presentations. And yet she's done great research. She has great information that will really help people at her company or people in an industry. And it'll even help her. It'll help her grow her career. But she struggles to get up, to present this information, to get in front of people. This is where humility is morphing almost into meekness, to where she doesn't even want to say anything, to talk. And yet this is where adding pride to the mix, standing up a little bit taller, a little straighter, speaking a little bit more loudly will help. And it won't just help Joanna. She maybe isn't motivated by, pride and just looking good in front of a crowd and what will happen to her personal reputation. So she can still channel the humility that got her there in the first place, right? Thinking less of herself, more of others, helping other people. She can still keep that added to the mix. It's not like she has to totally abandon that, but just adding that bit of pride that says, I have something useful to say. I have experiences, I have knowledge that will be useful to people. I need to get up and share them. There is value in that, and I can do it, right? So assessing where she is and then figuring out what is the next step, what needs to be added to the mix to get her where she needs to go, right? Joanna, a little bit too far on the side of humility. Mix in a little bit of pride. Understand the value and the importance that she can have by standing up, saying what she has to say. For Frank, too far on the side of pride, mix in a little bit of humility. Learn something new. Ask for help. Make decisions with others around you and your future self in mind, not just the current you. Those are just a couple of ways that Primility can impact our daily lives. And for whatever it is for you, if there's a place that you want to get to and you're not right there yet, whatever it is, just take a quick step back. Analyze where you are. Analyze the decisions that got you there without judging or feeling negative about them. They are what they are. You can't change them. So just assess them, right? Take that self-assessment and then make the next decision and say, does this next decision need to be a little bit more pride-based? Does it need to be a little bit more humility-based? And now you're on that path to self-determination where you're moving in the direction that you want to go, moving in the direction of the goals that you want to achieve. And that's how Primility can impact our daily lives, by doing this daily, by doing it moment by moment as we go through our days, as we remember, so that we're moving in the direction that we want to go. I thank you very much for watching this episode or listening to this episode of Primility Primer. If you're listening on the podcast, remember that there are several ways to connect with our content. The live broadcast can be viewed at primility.com/live every single weekday starting at 6:30 Central Time. You can also go to youtube.com/Primility, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or go to primility.com/iTunes, and you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. We appreciate you connecting. We appreciate you watching. And if you ever have a question and you want me to respond to, I can respond to it on an episode. I can respond to you privately. Always happy to interact. Email me at jared@primility.com. All right, everybody. Thank you. Stay cognizant of your pride and your humility as you go about your days. And I will be back with another brand new episode of Primility Primer on Monday morning. Have a great weekend, everybody.